Last week we took a look at a road less traveled in the music world, but today we're going to take a look at a fork in the road of musical instrument selection. It's a fork that anyone considering a woodwind instrument must face. To clarinet or to saxophone? That is the question we're going to be considering today. But first, a little overview. The clarinet, which is Italian for little trumpet, is a direct descendant of an instrument called the chalumeau and came into popular use at the end of the 18th century. But the clarinet's development, like many instruments, is difficult to attach to any one man. The saxophone, on the other hand, was an invention of Adolphe Sax in the 1840s, thus the name. Mr. Sax wanted an instrument that had the tonal qualities of a reed instrument, but with the volume and projection of a brass instrument. Both instruments form their own respective instrument families. There are over 12 varieties of clarinet and over 7 varieties of saxophone, but of all these, only a few are still actively played today in a mainstream setting. And most often, people start off with the B-flat soprano clarinet, which we have here, or the E-flat alto saxophone, and from there branch out into these other respective groups. So which instrument should you choose, the clarinet or the sax? We're going to let them go head-to-head in 5 categories to find out.
Instrument challenge! Round 1, affordability!
Beginning clarinets retail for $850. You can rent them new from us, not at all a shameless plug, for $35.95 a month, or well-used standards for $19.95 a month. Saxes, on the other hand, are a bit more pricey. A new beginner sax will run you at least $1,500. We rent them new for $55.95 a month. For standards, we rent them for $30.95 a month. So why the large price difference between saxes and clarinets? Well, saxes are more complex instruments. They require more expensive materials like gold and gold-pressed latinum. I'm totally kidding, that's a nerd joke. If you don't get it, it's probably a good thing. But they are more complex and harder to manufacture, so it costs more. So when you go pro, while the Buffet R13 clarinet is going to run you $3 grand, the Selmer Mark 6 sax is going to run you over $5.
Clarinet win! Round 2, portability! Clarinet win! Round 3, loudness! Saxophone wins! Round 4, coolness factor!
We conducted a very scientific and thorough poll via Facebook, to determine which of these instruments was the coolest. Here's some sample responses. Sax. Sax, this is not even a discussion. Sax, hands down. One word, Coltrane. Name one cool clarinet player. Squidward Tentacles plays a clarinet. Obviously it's a saxophone, if only because you can't say I want to clarinet you up. Oh, here's a clarinet one. Clarinet. There's more wood to use in the fire. Suffice it to say, sax won soundly.
Saxophone wins! Round 5, timbre!
Timbre is just a fancy word for the type of sound. Each kind of instrument has its own unique timbre. That's why you can tell a flute from a violin, from a human voice, even when they produce the same pitch. At first listen, the sax and the clarinet seem to have similar timbre since they're both reeded instruments. But when you start analyzing them more closely, the differences become apparent. The sax tends to be warmer and brighter. The clarinet a bit more subtle and cool. If these instruments were weather, the sax would be humid, and the clarinet dry. And this is where personal preference really comes into play. Me personally, I'd pick the clarinet because I like its subtler tone, but some people want a much meatier sound and to be able to push it a little more, so they might choose the sax. So this is definitely one of those areas where to each his own.
Raw! Final! Clarinet 2! Sax 2!
So in this very scientific and not at all rigged comparison of the sax and the clarinet, we have a draw, which is fitting. The truth is, both instruments have more than their fair share of strengths and weaknesses, so whichever road you choose probably says more about your personality than the instrument that you've chosen. So, the question is, which side are you on? Team sax or team clarinet?